Let's go. Let's break it down. So today's central talk, high value talk today is going to be a very requested topic on Patreon. Patreon is really great. Thanks for coming to my talk. That's the whole thing. I have not seen a guide on exactly how to build a Patreon and why it matters. And yet I think it is probably one of the most useful things that you can learn. And this is particularly something that I try to do a lot is give talks on things that don't just affect content creators. This is actually something that, like, if you're in business for yourself, if you're self-employed, if you have a craft on the side, there are tons of reasons where you can set up a Patreon. There's literally no downside because it costs you nothing to maintain per month. And it takes a very low percentage, which is 8%. So I'm going to start, and then plus you can earn some income on the side. So I'm literally going to say there is no downside to starting a Patreon. And also, you don't have to be a content creator to do it, okay? It takes about 8 to 12%, depending on some things, and then also no fee, so why not do it? You can run a small business like a restaurant, okay? Like, I'm just gonna like blow some minds right now. You can literally start like have a Patreon as a restaurant and say, hey, if you like hey, times are tough. If you like this restaurant, you can support it online through a monthly thing and get special value. There's no reason you can't do that. Even as a brick and mortar company, you can have a Patreon. It's just that most people do not because they don't think about how to do upsells and value adds. You can literally do a Patreon as any business. This is not just a talk for content creators. Like, this is and also I'm going to caveat something else because I get these messages. I'm going to get before I get 10,000 emails about this, I am aware there are other platforms besides Patreon. So I'm using Patreon because it's the one that I'm the most familiar with. I'm aware that there's platforms that are like Gumroad or whatever, but what I'm talking about is every platform that subscribes to the idea of like setting up a page where you can provide benefit to people in exchange for things that we'll talk about later. And I am going to start this talk now. He says, okay, so I was trying to figure out like what the easiest way to explain this is, but I wanted to first kind of sell you on the idea of it. And I wanted to sell you on the idea that like literally everyone can have one, right? So the most obvious application is content creators engaging fans, right? But it's also like brick and mortar companies engaging clients and retail engaging clients, or really just like any business client engagement. Okay. So once you understand that context, you understand like, okay, this talk is like relevant to me, and I've kind of sold you the pitch on it that like there's no downside to having this. The only cost is time. Now let me show you like how I think what will sort of seal that deal is like the very first principle. And I'm going to pull up a Patreon from our boy, Jeremy Allen Black. So I designed this Patreon and I also wrote copy for it, which is here. And I'm going to read you the first part of it. And this is going to be the first thing. Arcadum is creating the most ambitious D&D world on Twitch. 8 D&D campaigns live, 89 characters, 43 players and broadcasters, over 600 hours of campaigns, 20,000 on Discord, and 17 years of world building. Welcome to the living world of Verum. So the very first thing that I want to point out, and the most important thing, if you take away anything from this talk, is to tell a story. Way too many Patreons, the mistake they make is they literally like are like, hi, give me money. Signed, Devin Nash. Thank you. And then like, sure, some people will do that, like your most dedicated people, but let's take like two different narratives, okay? So first narrative is give me money, signed, Devin Nash, right? Cool. Okay. Well, the people that this will appeal to, I can't spell my name anymore, I'm losing my mind, is like very engaged people, already engaged, okay? And like long-term like supporters, which is good. But let's think of another narrative, just doing this on the fly right now, right? This isn't in the script. Devin Nash is creating the #1 industry and gaming news stream, and gaming business news stream, right? And then like I can like screw with this. Devin Nash is creating high value business and gaming educational content. There we go. See, like just with a couple of you can see I can spend another like 15 minutes on this and I'll have a very, very strong thing, like a very, very strong iteration, a very strong story where I'm not just here so that fans can give me money. I'm here because I'm building something and I'm setting goals so that the actual production of the show gets better in relation to how much support is given. And and Patreon actually supports this, right? Because right now, Arcadum has a goal of $7,000 per month that if he hits this, he'll be able to make a novel based on Verum, right? Because the idea is that he gets enough support from this that it unlocks time for him to be able to do other things. This is very good. Now, I'm going to say as a caveat that we built this Patreon. It launched day one at $6,000 a month. It's gone down from there because, in my opinion, Arcadum has not focused as much on it as he should. Understandably, given that he has 9 campaigns and Callus Row and a huge amount of stuff to do. So that's not a criticism, just more of an observation of like you do have to like put time and invest into it. But even still, the $3,500 per month just being supported in addition to like subs and things like that is great. So first thing is, do you tell a story? And how do you tell a story? So if you're like a restaurant or you're like a food restaurant, right? Are you creating a unique dining experience for people? Are you giving them something that's like different, meaningfully different from another place? If you're a content creator, what are you doing that's different? It's like Devin Nash is streaming video games on Twitch. It's like very uninteresting, but Devin Nash is creating high value business and gaming educational content is really interesting. One of my favorite Patrons of all time is Chapo's Trap House. This is a super good Patreon to get an idea of just how powerful this platform is for supporters. So this Patreon has 38,500 members and makes $171,000 a month as of this time. And this exists because it monetizes a dedicated audience. You could do even more with this if you like allowed other benefits, right? But just with 2 tiers here, $4.70 and $5, like you're getting this level of support, right? And this is just because Chapo was able to create a vertical that gave his people the opportunity to support him in this way. He literally just created it, made it, and then he talks a lot about it. Yeah, Chapo is a politics podcast, also comes in here quite often. So these are like 2 examples of like stories that get told, but I have others. We can look at some other ones. So Code Miko, we built this one on stream for those of you that remember that. And again, I guess we didn't get through the copy or this didn't get done, but the idea here, the right way to tell this story and what would increase these patrons is that Miko is doing something on Twitch that is very unique, which is like creating a kind of reality augmented tech experience through a character. So like telling that story in this copy would be very beneficial. That's why we have this, right? And you can actually see that like the very first part of this Patreon for Arcadum that we built is actually more of a sales pitch than there's anything else. The Living World of Verum is the most ambitious world-building project ever broadcasted on Twitch and YouTube. Sounds pretty freaking good, right? This sounds like something you might want to support. Hundreds of DMs, players, and supporters get together to help building a world of thousands to enjoy. Then there's a big picture here, amazing picture actually, that's for ants because it's in this document. I don't know how to show you guys this. So all the campaigns, all the characters in those campaigns and everything, giving you an idea of the scale of the world. And then here's like kind of the lore. Welcome to Planet Verum. On the continent of Calcatesh, multiple parties follow storylines exploring and creating a dynamic world that exchanges with the players' decisions. Parties have players live with a persistent world that changes each episode and each Twitch stream. The action of a single group of players affects everything across every campaign. Even the offline actions of players like you in Discord can change the world. The machinations are led by one man. His name is Arcadum, Dungeon Master for over 16 years. So you see how this is like, this Patreon was created to support the world and give more opportunities to players and supporters within it. You see how this has a story? Is this making sense to people so far? Like, this is not just support me streaming on Twitch. This is a story of something that's happening. Now, you might say, but Devin, I don't have a story of something that's happening. I'm not actually doing anything interesting. Well, dickhead, why are you actually making content then? You should think about that problem, right? Because like, if you're not doing anything interesting, then you already have a bigger problem than creating a Patreon because no one's going to support you on that basis alone, right? So the point is like, so the overarching point here and the most amount of value out of anything I'm going to say, I'm going to go into like how to create tiers and do all that stuff in a minute. But the most amount of value that I have to provide right now is quite literally, what are you doing? Like what, how do you step back and say, what unique experience am I creating for people? What unique experience am I creating through my business? What unique experience am I creating through my content? And when you have that answer, you can write something like this. And so it goes. I also really like this section that we wrote. What your support means to the future of the living world. With 200 players and active DMs, there's a lot of plans. Your support will make the difference to take the world to the next level. Here are some of these ways, right? Bi-monthly webcomic, badass professional art direction, right? Show like the art. Like people should see what they're contributing to. So my goal here is that you start to see how to build the story of your Patreon and what it actually will do. You're telling people directly what kind of impact this will have on them and what kind of impact it will have on you. So in the same exact way, I can talk about this in the context of my stream. They're like, okay, if you do this work, like you will actually benefit. If you put money into this, you will actually benefit in these ways. Okay. So I'm going to make this document available for anybody to see. It'll be linked in the YouTube, but it should give you an idea of how to write something in a sort of like little bit overly salesy way, but in such a way that it actually conveys the impact that it's making on your brand and what you're going to do. And like also keeping in mind that like there are KPIs and goals that are attached to that that will allow you to do more if people support you at that level. So hopefully everything makes sense so far. Okay, so now I'm going to get into sort of the way that you actually build one. This is like sort of the technical stuff. Okay, so in my mind, there's 5 ways to support to like actually build out tiers. We're gonna go over those right now. Okay, so there's 5 ways to break out tiers. This is if you're building tiers. This is like what you would think about. And some notes on tiers. I like to offer things for free or very expensive. So I'll write next to free as a caveat here. And this is how I approach all product creation. If I am going to offer an initial tier, the initial tier might be like $1 to $5. And then I might offer like a mid tier of like $15 to $20, and then a ghastly high tier of at least $100+ a month, because someone will jump on it. And if you look at like Arcadums, and he occasionally has somebody in this tier. Yeah, there's someone here right now. Just a person that's paying $777 to him per month. And it literally just isn't even a tier. And I think we did the same thing with Miko's. Yeah, we did. And it's usually a good idea to have a very high tier that just like people that have a lot of money want to support or just really believe in you. And also keeping in mind through the lens that Patreon is such a low platform percentage that it's so significant to have a supporter support at this level, because they're taking fees. The fees that get taken from you are maybe a little bit less, a little bit more than like a PayPal, say. Whereas like if let's say that same supporter donated that much in bits on Twitch, like you'd lose like 45% of your income or 35%, whatever it is, before it even hit you. So I tend to like this idea of support, right? And you don't have to like, you can incentivize this. You don't have to like just say like this is a nothing tier. Like thanks for giving me your money. You can. You don't have to. So my initial tier is going to be 1 to 5. My mid tiers are going to be like around this range, and my high tiers are going to be here. You can add or subtract tiers depending on like how advanced you want your Patreon to be and like kind of like the type of business. And then we'll go into the 5 ways that I think that you can actually add value to tiers. So keeping in mind that the higher the tier, the more the access. Or another way to say this is the higher the tier, the closer your supporters get to you and your business. So at lower tiers, you want to be offering things that are relatively easy for you to accomplish passively, or through the work of like somebody that like very low amount of work from somebody else. And then in higher tiers, you want to offer direct access. So at the highest level, so for example, if I were to do a Patreon, okay, my initial tier would be like $5, high value business short talks on education about how to be a content creator and how to build a business. This would be very low cost, and it would after a couple of weeks, it would go out to like a YouTube channel where it would be posted for free. So if you want to buy in, you get everything you want at like the low tier. Mid-tier would be something like a monthly Google Hangout session where everybody can answer like very targeted questions, and we get like a lot of value, very high value sesh. High tier would be like, I'll open up 3 to 4 spots at like $1,500 to $2,000 a month each for a dedicated mentorship program where I create a Discord with only those people in it. We set goals for the month, and then we proceed based on those goals, and I impact them every day or every other day and have calls with them to try to get to those goals and help them, right? Now, there are tons of people that would sign up for that tier. Like, even if I charged $5,000 a month, I'd get 4 people with that instantly, right? And that would be what I mean by like that, like really direct access to that very high tier. I'd be monetizing via that way. Okay, so I think that makes sense. So let's talk about like how do you fill the tiers like with stuff? Okay, so like I said, I think there's 5 ways to break out tiers. I think number 1 is what I would call deeper and exclusive knowledge. So this is, can you bring someone closer to your world craft expertise where they could otherwise not get this? For example, exclusive audio or video describing your craft, sharing behind the scenes footage, right? Deleted or historic material, no longer available or hard to get. This is deeper exclusive knowledge, right? It's lore. It's like business history. And again, like all this kind of falls into a more passive category. So like this is stuff that you can utilize in various tiers that won't take too much of your time. It's number 1. Number 2 is direct engagement with creators. This is most expensive. So this would be things like Google Hangout sessions, Q&As, direct email correspondence, or even direct phone calls, things like that, right? This is the most expensive and also highest for your time. So these should be like very limited in what you do. Number 3 is acknowledgement and contribution. This is just, this is particularly for people that have audiences. So this is like for content creators, but not necessarily. This is like the idea of like very large donators that like donate like a library to a college, right? Will typically have their name on it or something, or people that donate a bench to a park will have their name on it, right? It's putting your name on something. This is marketing to a person's idea of significance. And like, I want to put, this is NFTs in this category, right? Giving people NFTs like, or some other kind of limited value ownership titling of something of yours. Can also be like leaderboards. Like we have a permanent leaderboard here in this like one of our things here. You can always see is like anyone that gifts 5 subs or more, or donates $5, tips $5 or more, ends up as a permanent supporter of this channel. You actually like are literally in a hall of fame. You can go into these documents. You can see people that have supported for months and months and months, years, all the way back to August of 2019. And so like if you literally put $5 into this stream in September 2019, you'll be immortalized here, right? As on this list of people. So that's like what acknowledgement and contribution does. Those like little things that can make like a little like a difference that like people know that you're there. And this is also very common in Kickstarters. And by the way, every single thing that I'm making in this video actually applies also to Kickstarter campaigns. So this is kind of simultaneously how to build a Patreon and a Kickstarter, which is go me. I just figured out I did that. Okay, cool. So you can very easily attribute people, put them in credits, right? Or put them at the end of streams or videos or things you do, right? Put them on a wall. Tons of ways to do this. I view acknowledgement and contribution as a mid-tier. It's got to be a little bit more expensive than like the $5 tier, because if otherwise you're going to have to like put like thousands of names on your forehead, right? So that's annoying. So I would say like make sure that this is not like such a crazy tier that it's like so cheap that anybody can get in, like $1, or you're going to write like 1,000 names on a board, and like half of your YouTube video is just going to be credits. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4 is digital bonuses. So this is stuff like audiobooks, digital CDs, prints, art, specials, anything you can deliver. I'd say info products, right? Anything like this that you can deliver to a person's email, which has the added benefit of getting their email. Now they're on a list. Digital bonuses are great. So there are a lot of Kickstarters that do digital bonuses very well. One that I supported that I really liked was these guys, Shadowrun Sprawl Ops board game, which is like your sort of all-encompassing Shadowrun. This made $293,000, and I thought the reward tiers were like very, very creative. Where if you if you wanted to support at a relatively low level, you would start at $50 to get the game only, right? And then help with goals. But eventually you could get like expansion packs if you did more. You could get like co-op conversion kits. And then like eventually you could get like exclusive coins, right? And then you see this is what an example of a memorabilia. So digital fiction combo novel. So they just send in like it's like an additional thing they can add. It was really, really neat. This one here is like, okay, so like you like a hardcover book in addition, right? So let's send you like a hardcover book of like the Shadow and Anarchy set, and custom runner illustration card. And you see how like as this gets up higher, eventually getting to like the $2,000 or more tier, you're getting immortalized. So that's that like attribution. And this level includes an hour-long discussion about the writer, about your character and how they might fit into the story, right? So you actually become a living character in this game. And that's what I mean by selling exclusivity, right? Like, and there was another one that I think was the Kickstarter for Pathfinder Kingmaker, which was brilliant. This was a game that I think they're coming out with the second one of. This made almost $1 million, had a $500,000 goal and over 18,000 backers. So if you look at the first type of rewards of this, they were digital downloads, mostly just digital. Which is so like if you pledge $28 or more, sure you get the game, but you get like a forum badge. But these are very, very low, what I call deliverables, right? Very, very easy to deliver on. As you go up, right, you get more and more personal till like the point where like we're over here at like $4,000 per more, and you're getting literally a signed copy of the game. You're getting like a T-shirt, limited edition stuff. You're collaborating with the team to actually create a quest that appears in the game. How cool is that? So if you're really, really in to like this kind of world in this game, and you want to support this, look at all the stuff that you get. I think this is actually one of the best Kickstarters of all time, this Kingmaker game. And it did so well and actually ended up being a fantastic game. So it's like a great example. So you're seeing like the low value rewards here. Oh, by the way, just as like a short thing on the Patreon Kickstarter thing, always include all of the previous tiers as rewards in the current tier. So if you sign for the highest tier, you get all the rewards of the previous tiers. That's just a given. Always do that. So in this, you get like some like low value deliverables like digital art soundtrack, digital art book. These cost them nothing, but you also get like special mentions in the credits, an in-game quest designed for you. This is amazing, right? And this goes even bigger. So the point is, this gives like you open up the ability to give your highest level supporters the opportunity to support you. And that's an important thing because there could be someone right now that would give you $10,000, but they just don't have the value generated for it. Like they're not willing enough to give you that $10,000 because they just like they do it if you made them a part of it, but they're not in the mindset to do it because you haven't provided that value. But what Kingmaker did so well was it opened up tiers for people with that kind of support to put in that kind of value. So like even here, this is like a $10,000 pledge that gives you a personalized trip to Moscow to meet the whole team. Write a message that includes in the opening section of the credits. Get a dagger of Damascus steel. A personal gold platinum ring. A copy of every game that Owlcat Games releases in the next 10 years, right? Like, this is, like, think about how special you feel as an Oiler, right? Like, this is insane. Man, you will like literally never forget this experience of giving $10,000 to this game. So when I watched this happen, and they sold out of these instantly, like when these came out, they sold out instantaneously. All these tiers did because they were just such meaningful value. So I feel like this is like a really good example of what we're talking about here. Going back to our notes of how to make somebody feel very special through the use of like these techniques. So number 4 is digital bonuses, and then number 5 is physical bonuses, or physical goods, we'll call it. Physical bonuses. Just keep consistent, right? So this is things like items, books, things mailed to you, right? Memorabilia. I can't spell that word, so things, okay? or anything you can ship, give to customers. So, for example, CLG, we had this idea. This is like one of the best ideas that we had at CLG. We took the top 500 people in the CLG store. So we went into Shopify, we pulled the top 500 people that spent the most amount of money on the CLG store. Then we made 500 postcards, and we had the entire team of the LCS sign those postcards. And then we sent those postcards out either with their next order without telling them, or we just sent them directly to them, like no questions asked. And we got so much positive press from that. It was such a good move, right? That's an example of like a very small physical bonus thing. You literally just round up your team and go, hey, sit down, sign this thing. And a small but like very impactful gesture to be able to give that stuff to those people, right? So I really, really, really like the idea of this, okay? So that like these physical and digital bonuses. But like you don't even have to do that. Like you just stay in like the direct engage. If you just stay to these three: knowledge, creators, contribution, you don't even have to do the bonuses, and you don't even have to be product based or design something. It's just I'm trying to build all of the ways out that I think you can build them. And when I think it comes down to these 5 at the end of how you actually structure those tiers. So I'm going to link this as a good example of Kickstarter, but there are others. I think that like and then I'm also going to link the Arcadum one that we designed as an example of good Patreon. But there are others. But the key to kind of like takeaways here are like, are you creating a story that's really interesting that people can kind of like get in front of? And if you are creating that story, how are you making people feel like they are special and they're integrated into like being a part of making this better? You know, you're not just like having people give you money for no reason. The idea is that they are actually helping to build something that is going to make their own experience of your content better, but the experience of everyone better as well. And that's why it's also really important, and it's something I guess I didn't really cover, is like setting good goals. But that should be something that like if you think a little bit about in the context of your content and the context of your business, you can figure out. So like with more like brick and mortar businesses, maybe that means like a wider selection of products or a wider selection of service. For a content creator, maybe that means you're able to do like a YouTube channel or a YouTube Shorts channel, or you're able to hire somebody to do something, or you're able to provide like a new platform like an Instagram, or like Jeremy's doing, you're able to like provide a novel, for example, if he hits like that $7,000 mark, which he could easily do if he like hyped it, but he's like so busy. And then that's an example. So just to give you an idea of like the power that I think this has, I think every single person and every single content creator of like even a remotely small size could probably make like a few $1,000s at a minimum off of Patreon, which is not money to sneeze at. Like this channel, I think, well, if we did the personalized tiers and if I had time for that, could do a lot better. Like maybe 10 to 15,000, but even just given non-exclusive tiers could do, 3 to 5,000. Super reasonable for someone with 1,000 viewers to do that. And I think that most people could like, so the way that I would do this is if I was like a brick and mortar business, that's like more interesting to me. Content creator applications are like pretty obvious. Like I would, for every customer, I would probably train saying like, hey, we're trying to do X. This is our goal here. If you want to support this business, here's a way to do it. And maybe every customer leaves with like a little flyer that shows how they can support them on Patreon. And then this would also be connected to like a wider social media campaign, which is probably beyond the scope of this talk, but you get the idea. Okay, so I think I'm not missing anything. I think I've brought up like a lot of the really good examples of how a Patreon ought work and given some examples of like how it could. I really like there's like, to be clear, like even the Patreons that I've shown you are just like so far below what you could actually do if you follow like I'm tempted to make my own just to show you like how insane it is, and maybe I will at some point. It's just that I'm not creating enough content at this moment in time that I feel like it's justifiable. So I won't. But suffice to say that like you can look at these patrons, and another like really easy thing is like go look at other patrons and other people that are building support around something that is like your stuff and get inspired by those ideas. I've seen there was this dude that makes like art. He makes like crafts, and he wasn't on Patreon. He was on like an artsy Patreon, something called something else. But he was making like he was like just brick and mortar, not a content creator at all. But he was making 3.5 a month in addition, just building these little like wooden sculptures, just because he talked to people about it and he got some supporters. And it just goes back to the idea of like what I talk about so often, which is like the 1,000 true fans concept. Which like you don't need millions and millions and millions of supporters, or even hundreds of thousands of supporters, or even like 10,000 supporters. You need 1,000 supporters or 100 supporters. Like 100 supporters that pay you $100 a month. That's freaking great, right? So hopefully, like in this day and age, as we move more towards like an attention / creator economy, it becomes more important to have individualized resources along these lines. And I think a Patreon / like whatever service you choose to use is going to be something that every single person should consider. And because of that, I wanted to make like a really short for Devin Nash is like 45 minutes, so this is pretty short. Talk on like how to do that. And hopefully I covered everything. I'm going to wait around for a minute to see if there's any questions. But if there's not, then that's the talk. Thanks for coming. And hopefully you got something out of it. I think everybody should consider how they could incorporate this. Don't have to be a content creator. And if you have like a side project, it could be like a very good thing. Like if this even makes you $200 to $500 a month, pretty worth it, right? Thanks, guys.